Last time we covered the story of the Becker and Hollander Bahalo, a compact military pistol born from a sporting concern during the First World War. Now let's explore another solution to the exact same problem, this time coming from a family of arms makers. Hi, I'm Othais, and this is the FL Selbstlader, I'm bad at German, stepladder pistol. Alright, let's take it over the light box. At 6.6 inches and 1.4 pounds, this pistol is larger but still the same weight as that previous Bahala. Should tell you how compact that thing was. It has a magazine capacity of 8 rounds and chambers the .32 ACP cartridge. If you don't have a passing familiarity with this cartridge yet, I can't help you. We'll get into detail when we get to the FN 1900 though. The Langenhans were a family concern in Zella-Mellis back until at least 1842, probably before. We've heard of that region before, and we know a lot of talented people have come out of it. Well, in the era of Friedrich Langenhan, the company solidified as F.L. Gewehr und Fahrradfabrik, and I'm sorry again about my German pronunciation. Now, Friedrich had designed a revolver, which was honestly a Smith & Wesson clone, and sold it to the Saxon army as the model 1873. This is sort of the first foray into military design, and the second to last for this family. With Friedrich's death in 1885, the company turned over to his son Hermann. Now, Hermann expanded the Langenhan business pretty significantly into more sporting and target arms, and also he started producing bicycles. Seems like everybody that was manufacturing guns also manufactured bicycles. Anyway, Hermann's son, Fritz, would actually design a handy little pistol. Now, the history is that this was supposed to be a commercial design pre-war, but it's kind of interesting that this has the sort of larger frame and larger barrel that we'd expect from a military and police design. Now, it could just be that Fritz had designed a smaller pistol to begin with and it's sort of been lost, or it could be that he was actually looking for a military and police market. We're really unsure at the moment. There's not a whole lot written about these guys. Anyway, if we take a closer look at it, we're going to see what is sort of the worst feature of this gun that people tend to think of first. Alright. As we're looking, by the way, this is, a lot like an FN 1900. It's obviously been copied from one. Here, let's just get a comparison. There's a lot in common, especially in the way that the slide is set up to the frame and things like that. All right. Also, similar to the 1900, this has a separate breech block that's been attached to the sort of slide assembly with a screw. On the 1900, if we look at it again, we'll see that it's set with two screws. Two screws. And most people don't tend to worry about it. You don't hear a lot about people being afraid of the breech block in the 1900, probably because it's got a little redundancy right there. What you do hear all the time is that people are actually terrified of this gun because it's one large screw in the back. Now, I've pre-loosened this. I don't want you to think that it's this loose when you take it out to shoot. But if we unscrew it and look how many turns it takes, and some more. There we go. We're finally out. I mean, that's fairly deeply threaded. All right, get that out of our way. Now, the only thing holding our breech block in is this sort of yoke. If I release it, we're going to see the slide come forward, but equally, if we were firing, there would be a chance of seeing that breech come straight back out the back of the action. So that's the big fear, is that your screw will come loose, you won't notice, and you'll pull the trigger. And when you pull the trigger, this guy is going to go right into your eye. A valid concern, however, as terrifying as that is to hear, I just don't think it's all that likely. The screw is very large and deep set. It is set up in a way that it is not necessarily in line with the action, that it's going to snag or rotate. And if we bring up a photo of the POV, you can see that it's very easy to sort of read the screw. You would notice if it started to loosen if you were even vaguely aware of the problem. However, we can't say that it's the height of arms design. The frame and slide are not retaining the breech block. A screw and a hinged yoke are. Other than that little problem, the gun handles a lot like the original 1900. I found it very pleasant to shoot. I obviously trusted it enough to shoot, although I did watch the back of that screw. Alright, so now that we've gone over for the worst feature, let's just see how the rest of the gun works in general.
We're looking at a single-action internal hammer fire blowback system. A pull of the trigger sends the trigger bar back, tipping the sear and freeing the hammer to fall. The safety simply turns into the hammer's path, locking it rearward. The rearward travel of the breech block resets the hammer. On most models, the trigger bar's top remains exposed. Kinda neat to see in person. Alright, we'll load up our 8-round magazine. Aim and fire. The safety is a bit awkward, but manageable one-handed. Let's see how I did. Sweet.
You know, this gun is in tattered shape, as you can tell. It still performed excellently while we were at the range. I think the moment we tried to use it, there was one little feed problem that we fixed by reworking the lips, and then after that, she ran like a tank. Great, great handgun, and honestly, I was drilling a hole the size of a quarter with it, just shooting two-handed, although we don't tend to film me shooting. Getting into the history of it, though, for service life, much like the Valhalla, it really only served through World War I, and it would be mostly abandoned after the war for other designs. However, with 70,000 produced, there are a number of variants that we could cover just for you to be familiar with. We're going to see 4 variations of this military pistol. The first has an exposed ejection port. It's open whenever the breech is closed so that you can see the breech block through it. It's on the right side. It has a long safety, an external disconnect. See, you can see it poking up above the grip there. Those grips are hard rubber, and roughly 8,000 of these were made. The second variation sealed up that ejection port when the gun is in battery, so that breech block can no longer be seen on the right side. We still have the long safety, external disconnector, and hard rubber grips, although later some wood grips would start to show up. Roughly 45,000 of these were produced, so that makes the second variation the most common. The third variation introduces a new safety. It works the same as the old safety, it's just a shorter throw and a slightly different arc. It's a little easier to handle. Again, the enclosed breech block and ejection port, external disconnect. This one is almost always found with wood grips, roughly 13,000 made. Now variation 4 has an internal disconnector. We can no longer see it sticking up above the grip. Still has the enclosed breech block. It has the improved short safety. And it has wood grips, or it seems to be more commonly found with the redesigned hard rubber grips. Roughly 19,000 were produced. Post-war there will be 2 commercial models. The first, the Model 2, will chamber the 25 ACP cartridge and fit 7 rounds in its magazine. This is meant to get into that sort of pocket/vest market. Its overall length is 5.7 inches. The Model 3 is even smaller and can only chamber 5 rounds of 25 ACP. It has an overall length of 4.75 inches. This is really getting down to a vest pistol. Both sold well enough, however, we obviously know that they aren't the most remembered pistols ever made. They are interesting in that they dispensed with the Langenhan yoke and instead used a cross screw like we're used to seeing on the 1900. Otherwise, fairly similar operation. They're sort of beyond the scope of this video anyway, though. Now, like we said, even with its improvements, the Langenhan is still sort of a poor man's 1900. It's not particularly revolutionary, and it doesn't have any advantages over any other design, and there's quite a few disadvantages. So, after the war, the pistol sort of evaporated. It went on to the commercial market, obviously, for a while, and we still see them today in the collector's market, but that's really about it. Not a remarkable, history-changing handgun. But it was worth talking about just because of that sort of rumor of it being a suicide pistol, and just to look at something truly unique from the battlefield. Alright, let's go ahead and get Mae's opinion on shooting this thing, because I personally think it's a bit of a sleeper. Alright, we let Mae back indoors, so let's go ahead and get her opinion on the Langenhan. There you go. Would you start us just with some handling?
Sure. So right off the bat I noticed, very thin, flat gun, doesn't weigh a lot, 4-finger grip. I've got all my hand on there, so in terms of comfort, right off the bat, I thought it was great. However, I did notice along the way a couple of features in terms of functioning weren't my favorite. It's got this heel drop mag, so as everyone knows, they're not my favorite. This one was easier to actually pull the mag out, but I could notice over time how this little push button, it wouldn't really be my favorite. It'd probably wear on my thumb a little bit. The safety, it's very difficult to one-hand. You could even see on camera I'm having a hard time, so I think even I'd prefer to two-hand that one. Overall, I thought it was a very comfortable gun. Those one little two features aren't really going to kill a gun for me, you know?
Yeah, I want to say when you pick this gun up, probably the first thing you're going to notice is that it is narrow, very flat. At the time, it's supposed to be sort of a police pistol carried on your hip kind of thing, but in terms of concealment, it would be great too. I mean, it really is flat. Mm-hmm. Now, there were some commercial versions of this gun that came later. We're not going to talk about them here, but they probably took advantage of this feature pretty well. All right, in terms of that safety, don't forget, they actually switched over to shorter stroke safety because it was such a problem. Now, why don't you talk a little bit about just shooting it, the feel for the recoil, the sights, that sort of thing.
Okay. Well, like I mentioned before, in terms of the action, it was pretty smooth. The recoil, there really wasn't much to it. It was 32. It was actually very manageable. For the trigger, I noticed it was a little bit squishy in there, but I think that might just be because of the trigger bar setup. Correct me if you think I'm wrong on that one. But overall, I actually drilled a hole with this one. My accuracy on this one was very high. Out of the 32s we've shot so far, this is the one I have been the most accurate with. Not my favorite overall, but most accurate definitely.
Okay, but what about the sights?
As for the sights, they're very narrow. So for modern, I can see how this is not anyone's favorite shooter, but historically, they're very tall and they're actually pretty good for that time.
All right, so I guess we got to ask sort of an obvious question here, though. Were you afraid for your life?
I was not afraid for my life, but I did eyeball this screw the entire time.
It's nothing like knowing that you're one screw away from having that thing catch you in the eye to make you watch that screw like a hawk. Okay, I guess final question that we have always been asking, as tacky as it might be, would you be comfortable on a battlefield with the Langenhan?
Yes, I would be comfortable taking this into battle. Overall, like I said, there were tiny things about this gun that I did not care for, the magazine and the safety, but those won't damage the gun for me. And to be fair, like I said before, I drilled a hole with this gun, so I would take it in battle any day of the week.
I think it's kind of telling for this pistol that, like I said earlier, this is not the cleanest copy we've seen. I mean, it's not terribly rough, but it's not perfect either. And it did great, and it performed well. Both of us thought that it was a very accurate shooter. For all the sort of bad-mouthing that goes on about this pistol, I think after toying with it, it's earned itself a little more respect. Again, not revolutionary, not a world changer, but certainly better than its given history as it stands. All right. Well, I hope you enjoyed this pistol, and we thank you every time for all the support you guys have given us.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone.
Hey everybody, I'm going to be wrapping up the episode this time around. A couple quick things. Thank you to our executive producer who has lent us the Langenhan for that episode. We could not have produced it without him. A big thank you to Deflator Mouse. He sent us many new viewers, so hey, welcome everybody. Our Patreon levels are up to 828, so woohoo. Thank you everyone for your continued support. And as for a new project we've got going, check out in the links, the link to the Indiegogo site. We are trying to fund a trip to go shoot some machine guns, so please everyone try to help support us through that. All right, thanks everybody.